Hello and welcome to this video where we're going to look at how you add and subtract fractions together. So here we have a first example which is fairly straightforward. You'll notice that in both of these fractions the bottom number, which we would call the denominator, is the same. When the denominator is the same, all you have to do to add the fractions together is add together two numerators. So 2 add 3 gives you 5, and 7 on the bottom, the denominator, stays the same. So 2 sevenths plus 3 sevenths is 5 sevenths. A second example then, where the denominators in this one are different. So this one is 2 fifths and this one is 1 quarter. Now we cannot use the same approach of just adding these two together because these two denominators are not the same. So what we must do is try and make them the same. In order to do that, what we're going to do is try and look in the times tables for 5 and 4 and try and find the lowest common multiple. So the times tables for 5 goes 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 and so on. The times tables for 4 go 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, and we have just found that 20 is in both of those times tables and it's the lowest one. So 20 is the lowest common multiple of 4 and 5. So what we can do is change both of these using equivalent fractions to out of 20. So what I'm going to do is attempt to change 2 fifths into something out of 20 and then change 1 quarter into something else out of 20. And the way to do that is to look at the denominators. So what did I multiply 5 by to get to 20? From 5 to 20 I must have multiplied by 4, and if I do that on the bottom, the denominators, I must also do that on the top. So 5 times 4 is 20, 2 times 4 is 8. So this fraction is the same as 2 fifths. Now I look at the quarter. How do I get from 4 to 20 by multiplying? Well, to get from 4 to 20 by multiplying, I multiply by 5, because 4 times 5 is 20. So I do 1 times 5 to get 5. So this is the same as 1 quarter. I can now very easily add the fractions because the denominators are the same. So I keep the 20 on the bottom, I do 8 add 5, which gives me 13. So the answer to this question is 13 out of 20. A final example here then, before you have some to try. I've got 1/6 add 3 quarters. Now in the previous question, you may have noticed that the number that we used, 20, was simply 5 times 4. So some people get into the habit of just multiplying 5 and 4, but that will often mean you need to simplify your answer. I want to encourage you to use the times tables, so 6, 12, 18, 24 and so on, and then 4, 8, 12, 16, 24 and so on for the 4 times table. Now lots of people might be tempted to use this 24 here because 6 times 4 is 24, but the lowest one is 12, so that's the one I'm going to go for, because 12 is a multiple of both 4 and 6 and it's the lowest one. So I'm going to go for 12. So I ask myself, how do I get from this 6 to this 12? I times 2. So times 2 on the top, 1 times 2 is 2. On this one here, how do I get from 4 to 12? I times by 3. So times 3 on the top, 3 times 3 is 9. Well, 2 add 9 is 11, and it's out of 12 again. Now if you did it the other way, let's just see what happens. If you went for 24, then you may have ended up with, well, how does 6 get to 24? We times 4, so 1 times 4 is 4. How does 4 get to 24 times 6? So 6 times 3 is 18, which gives you 22 out of 24. Now this is the same as our answer, 11 out of 12, only you need to simplify it by dividing both by 2. So divide 22 by 2 gives you 11, divide 24 by 2 gives you 12. So you can do it this way, but as you can see here, you had to simplify your answer. Okay, here are 3 questions for you to go at on adding fractions together. Press pause, try these, and then press play, and I'll tell you what the answers were. Okay, here are the answers then. So for this first one, I would go for out of 15. and 3 times 5 is 15, so I do 1 times 5. And on this one, 5 times 3 is 15, so I do 2 times 3, which is 6, and that leaves me with 11 out of 15. For this second question, I would go for 8 as the lowest common multiple, so this first one you would actually leave the same. The half, though, you would change to 4 out of 8, and then 3 add 4 is 7 out of 8. And this last question here, I would go for 10. So the first one, 5 times 2 is 10, so 4 times 2 is 8, and then 1 out of 10 stays the same, in which case you end up with 9 out of 10. Example 4 then, so this time I've changed it to a subtraction. So how do we subtract fractions? Well, we do exactly the same method, only we have a subtraction sign in the middle. So think of the 6 and 5 times table, and the lowest common multiple of those is 30. So how do I get from 6 to 30? I times 5, so 5 times 5, 25. How do I get from 5 to 30? Times 6, so 1 times 6, 6. Now the only difference is at this stage we used to add, because there was an add in the middle, but this time it's take away. 25 take away 6 is 19, and we still keep that denominator the same as 30. So this one would come out as 19 out of 30. Here are some questions on subtracting fractions for you to try. Press pause, have a go at these, and then press play and I'll tell you what the answers were. Okay, here are the answers then. So for this first one, I would go for out of 24. And 8 times 3 is 24, so 7 times 3 is 21. 3 times 8 is 24, so 2 times 8 is 16. And then I do my subtraction and I end up with 5 out of 24. For this next one here, I would go for out of 8. So I need to leave 3/8 as it is. To get from 4 to 8, I multiply by 2, so 1 times 2 is 2, in which case 3 take away 2 is 1, so it's 1 out of 8. And for this final question here, I would go for out of 15. To get from 3 to 15, I multiply 5, so 2 5s are 10, and to get from 5 to 15, I multiply by 3, so 2 times 3 is 6. And then 10 take away 6 is 4, so it's 4 out of 15.